today I'm at the, well, you tell us where we're at today. You know the most. You tell us where we're at today.
Hi, everyone. My name is Michael Anderson. I'm a D3 at the Arizona School of Dentistry and Oral Health. We're a sister school to ATSU. I have a couple of my colleagues with us. So today we're at the Arizona Dental Association for our special speaker series featuring Dr. Howard Farran and his one-day dental MBA and Uncomplicate Business.
What I thought would be fun is, you know, right now there's dentists practicing from 4 generations. There's the oldest ones from the greatest generation. There's guys like me that are baby boomers. There's Generation X, and there's millennials. And I always hear people on Dental Town talking about what you guys think and do. So I thought what would be best is let's have a podcast with 5 people and let's find out. My question is, I want to go around the table. There's lots of things that people describe you at. They say things like that you guys don't want to work as hard as your old man, that you guys aren't going to work evenings and weekends. They say that you want to work for big box corporate dentistry like Heartland Aspen, that you have no desire to ever open up your own business because you're a millennial and you're lazy and all that stuff. And there's no right or wrong that it's moderate, that you saw your parents work so many hours. You said, I'm just not going to live like that. I'm only going to, this, that. So we hear all these things. What I want to do is I want to just introduce you to my homies, and I want them to hear from the horse's mouth. We're going to go around. We're going to start with you, and we're going to go this way. And I just want you to tell me, I want you to answer these questions. Do you ever want to own your own practice, or do you just want a job at corporate? We hear you always whining about how much student loans you have, and that's only, and you that scares you because you've never paid alimony yet. And so then my question to you is, well, let's say you were going to graduate with no student loan debt. If you're always whining, I'm going to have $350,000 in student loans, then tell me, well, what would you do differently if the tooth fairy came and took away all your student loans? So just and then my homies my age, we want to hire you. So then tell us, what are you looking for? I mean, is it the most money? Do you want to learn how to place implants? Is it business leadership? So if you were coming into my town and my town had 4 old guys looking for an associate, what would you be looking for so I can try to aim my ad and build my cage so that someone like you wants to work for me so I can go golf and get drunk every day and not have to fix teeth? So we'll start with you.
So your first question is would we rather go into private practice or corporate? I actually never have any intention of going to corporate. I think there's a lot of my classmates that feel the same, but I think that just given with student debt, that they're driven to go that way. Especially it depends on what type of education they had while in dental school. If it wasn't very strong and how to survive in terms of managing a business, they don't know that. So they're looking for that knowledge somewhere else. And so I think that's why they try to go into corporate for maybe about a year or 2 to try to learn the business side, and maybe we'll branch out. Whether they get sucked in or not, I don't know. Or maybe some corporate offices are very great and some of them are very poorly managed. So I'm not going to just knock corporate for being, 100% downgrading, but I do. And I think, especially as a woman, too, to balance professional and personal, I do want to own my own practice, probably with maybe another partner. That was always the intention. I'm going to try to fight for that. Second question was student debt. We always hear about it. They always say the average is about $200,000, but that's maybe if you go to Georgia or Mississippi that only accepts in-state students and their tuition is ridiculous, like $15,000 a year, versus ours is $75 to $100. So we're graduating. That average is. So we're on the total left spectrum at $400,000 in debt. So there's different types of programs to help pay and offset that back. We went to state legislators and also national legislators and saying, how can we manage our debt? And they say, well, you should go back to your deans and ask, why does dental education keep on driving cost up? So we're kind of being caught in the middle of that. I would like to see, we saw it a couple years ago in terms of nurses and teachers where there was a loan forgiveness by either the state or federal government. Why can't there be some type of state incentives for dental students that want to practice there? So that's an option. What would I do differently if I didn't have any student debt? I think I would go right into private practice, and I would triage between probably trying to be able to survive in terms of for fee for service, but also staying and surviving and also treating Medicaid. I would love to do mission work and humanitarian and do global dentistry, but that's just my own personal preference because I have been to Tanzania, I've been to South Africa, I did work in Micronesia and stuff like that. So seeing people, treating people is why I came into dentistry. And I think, did I answer all the questions? Am I missing one question?
Did you climb Kilimanjaro when you went to Tanzania?
I didn't.
Oh my
I didn't.
gosh.
So they did. It was part mission.
So you are lazy. It's true. Millennials
I know,
are
we
lazy.
didn't have enough time, so it was between that or studying for the DAT, and so I was like, I got to go back.
Well,
to
let
study for
me
the
ask
DAT.
this. Not to be judgmental, but
Sure.
do millennials have less work ethic than their parents?
I don't think so. I think with the coming of age, there's more information. There's more to know. And so if you look at people that went to dental school or went to medical school, there's a lot more information out there. So people don't just wake up and say, oh, I'm going to be a dentist. These are the people that are in the libraries and want to go to administration and say, why are you closing at midnight? So people are like, if even in my dental school class, people lose sleep. There's a couple, and they crash. So there's a couple nights that they don't sleep because it's so much information to retain because they're making even more and more exams that we have to pass. So not only now do we have to take the DAT to get into dental school, now and we have to take the 2 boards. So, but now they're trying to combine the 2 boards. So if you want to apply for specialty, for instance, if you go to medical school, you have to take if you want to be an oral maxillofacial surgeon, you have to take the medical board. If you want to go into ortho, you have to take the GRE. But now there's the ADAT coming out. So, and we don't know how that's going to hit us. That's another exam that we have to study for on top of trying to just pass boards, become a licensed dentist. So there is actually even more that we have to study for. So I don't know.
Okay, one thing I don't understand is one of the reasons corporate's doing so well is just because they're hiring people. Where in all the free enterprise dentists who don't like corporate, they're not hiring anyone. And one of the reasons they're not hiring anyone is they're closed Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They have no digital phone system that will tell them when they come in Monday, that 79 people called your office and went to voicemail and only 2 left a message. So corporate is offering student loan payback. And so I was wondering, how many years do you on your payments when you graduate? How many year payment is your student loan restructure at your $400,000?
So they have different timelines from what I'm versed in. There's a 10-year timeline or there's an extended 10-year at a $400,000. I think it's we have to pay about $5,800 a year. I mean, $5,800 a month to pay assuming interest is accounted for.
So on a 10-year payback on $400,000, it's $5,800 a month.
About, yeah.
So I have a gazillion dentists on Dental Town that are in small towns and say, well, no one could get an associate in Salina, Kansas, but you're willing to go to the Navajo Indian Reservation or a public clinic or your Tanzania or whatever. Why don't you guys just build a section on Dental Town? I got 6 programmers that sit there and say, okay, my 10-year payback is this. If you make my $5,800 student loan payment, I'll work for you for this amount. And then you just shop that out to 210,000 dentists on Dental Town, and you might end up having to go to Idaho and learn how to only eat potatoes.
Let's do it. I love potatoes, actually.
Yeah. You might be Irish. You might be Irish and not know it.
There was a graduate at ASDO that went on an external rotation in Wisconsin, and she wanted to stay there. And so she talked to the city. They bought her a brand new multi-million-dollar practice and said, if you stay here for 4 years, it's yours for free. So the patient base is there for you, and you can sell it and make whatever you want off of it.
Okay, and what state was that? Was that in
Wisconsin.
Iowa? Okay, so Iowa, Delta Dental has got a list of towns that will chip in $100,000, and if you go there, Delta Dental will match. And I'm really excited because these new
Before or
problems.
after taxes? Just kidding.
Yeah,
We'll talk to negotiations after.
Yeah, so these dentists are going, and they'll say, okay, I will go to a small town in Iowa, and but I'm going to get $100,000 from the small town, $100,000 from Delta, and they just chop their. I mean, if you have $400,000 student loans, you just cut your student loans in half, and the only downside is you're going to have to smoke out of a corncob pipe.
So this is Ziad. He's a D4, and he's going to be exiting. So would you take it?
What do I have to smoke? Actually, I want to go back to your question about millennials, because that topic just gets me, like,
See, I thought you'd be
angry.
too lazy to even answer the question.
Angry. I'll answer it at 3 p.m. when I wake up, right? That's the whole idea. No, because, I mean, I think, and it's a generational thing. It really is a generational thing. It's not an ethnic thing at all, which is kind of fascinating, too. But what I'm trying to say is that for us, our ideas of everything from business to life to our worldview is so diametrically opposed to every generation above us that we don't even attempt to try to like bridge a gap or anything. And I, there was
you're talking to a bunch of my old homies. Tell
I know.
them, give us lots of examples.
So I'll give you an example. Dr. Reisbeck, who was in charge of our curriculum, he actually passed away. As the late Dr. Reisbeck, really great guy. I loved him. I used to go into his office. He was in charge of our curriculum for D1 year, first year. And I'd go in there, and we would talk about tennis. He was like 80 something, and I remember one conversation I had with him that it just made me laugh so hard. I was telling him, I was like, I'm struggling with your curriculum. It's crazy. And he said, listen. This is a great profession. He said, my first summer in dental school, we just played golf for 2 months. I said, you gave us a break of 2 weeks. What is that? And he goes, well, and I said, this curriculum is ridiculous. It's so hard. It doesn't make sense. And he goes, well, yeah, I know. I designed it. I was like, so your life in dental school and my life in dental school are completely different. It doesn't make any sense to me, So when that generation, when your homies look at us and they try to understand our motivation for money, for marriage, for life, for whatever it is, why are all these millennials on their computers and they're tweeting and they're Snapchatting and it doesn't make sense, and why are they taking pictures of their food? You don't understand us. We're a different creature. You really have to go. And first of all, y'all raised us, so it's not like a huge mystery, right? But it's funny because I think every time I go back to dental school, so I'm from Texas, and so every time I go back, I used to get into conversations with my dad, for example. He's almost 70, and he'd start talking about life, and it was entertaining. You entertain your parents; they raise you, they change your diapers, so you listen. But my patience was just growing shorter and shorter on every Christmas break. I'd go back, I'd last first it was 2 weeks. Then I was like, no, second week I'm taking off. I can't be there that long at home. Then now I go back for 30 minutes and then I leave. But the point is that I think, first of all, that generation has to really ask themselves, do they truly respect us enough to understand how we function? I don't think they do. Most of them, not all of them, most of them. Congress, leaders, corporate bosses, they don't care. They don't really care. They just see us taking pictures of our food, and they automatically are judging us as there is, and I say this with complete pride in my generation. I have never seen such hard workers in my life. You want to try to tweet, email, send a picture, text mom, text your 8 girlfriends while you're driving? That takes skill, I mean, come on.
You talked about transparency earlier, and I think that maybe it's not so much. I do get frustration with people of my own age that want them me. What are you going to do for me? Or I'm not going to volunteer. Or I'll volunteer. I'll take a position because it's a good face, but I'm not going to put out any work. The honor in having a purpose, making something better, growing it. It depends on what pool of people you talk to and you come from. We're all from dental school, so we all actually work really hard. So in terms of us being lazy, I don't think it's lazy. I think we're more worried about efficiency. So if there's a better way to do it, if there's a smarter way to do it, that's why we're texting, that's why we're on our phones. The transparency that you talk about that some countries have that we are lacking of, hopefully our generation gap can fill that.
And we want to.
But go back to the older guys out there that
to help them understand.
Well, okay. Everybody's going to work at Heartland and Aspen and all these because they're offering jobs.
Right.
And a lot of these dentists, they say, well, no one's going to come to work for me. What would you be looking for? Would it be a salary with a student loan payback? Would it be the most money? Would it be mentorship that you're saying, I want to learn how to place implants or do endo? Is some guy wanted to snatch you? What would he be offering?
Ironically, I don't feel anybody, speaking from just myself, and please share your opinions because I don't want to speak for anybody, but I actually feel like as coming out as a D4, nobody would want to hire me because I don't have any experience. A lot of times for new graduates, they want somebody with at least 5 years. That's even I think the ADA doesn't recognize, you're still considered a new dentist until I think you're 10 years out. So it's hard to find a job when you don't have any experience. That's one thing. I don't feel that people want to hire me. And second, if I am going to get hired, the most valuable thing as a new dentist coming out is mentorship. And this is for even me now. It is so hard to find people that are good mentors and that have, I know that they're out there, but I just haven't came in to be able to connect with somebody that isn't, have their own agenda, where it kind of has to fear like you got to, climb the ladder. You kind of have to like, basically turn over and do everything in order to get mentorship kind of thing. Like where, not slave labor, but, just have a good, cordial, equal relationship. Not really even equal. I know that you're learning from them. So for me, it would be mentorship would be the most. Obviously.
Mentorship in what?
Mentorship in business and practice.
I think when you're talking about corporate dentistry, a lot of people are drawn to it because it fills that gap of what people need. And then me as a graduating dentist, I think I would actually really be valuable to a practice because I am of the millennial generation where I can fill these older dentist gap. I can increase their social media. I can do their marketing. I can relate to the younger clientele that's coming in. And being a female, I mean, like we said, I'm more attractive to moms with kids. Yeah. Like I can meet your need. So if I'm going into an older,
You're saying you're more attractive than me?
I'm saying that a mom with their kid would probably. Oh, geez. But I think it all comes down to what can you provide me and what can I provide you. It's a business trade.
And I'm not bringing this up because you're both women and you've mentioned already. Do you ever feel that you're a woman entering a man's profession, or did that die years ago?
For me, no, because I'm stubborn and I'm just gonna do whatever I want. Not like in a bad way, but I'm gonna, if I want to do it, I'm gonna do it. And I think that has to do with the millennial generation that we're going to get where we want regardless. And I think a lot of it has to do, too, as we were talking with we're going to work smarter, not harder.
Yeah, if I may interject.
No, you're not a woman. That was a woman.
Okay.
No, you might be pre-transgender. So
You never know.
Continue.
You never know. Just from my perspective, my name is Austin Shackelford. I'm a second-year dental student at ASDO. I grew up in the Phoenix area, and I've been around the dental industry here. And coming out of school, it seems pretty unknown what the future business model of a private practice will be. It seems like the model where it's a single practitioner with his own office or her own office in a neighborhood is going away. And corporate dentistry has taken more and more market share. So as somebody coming out of school, it's like, well, this seems more certain. Am I going to take over a practice that is going to not succeed or be archaic in 10 years?
Well, I would say that that everyone thinks linearly. So when I got out of school in 87, from 93 to 2000, if a monkey bought a stock, it would double in 2 months. And everybody just thought linear. And then at March of 2000, NASDAQ was at 5,800 and it popped down to 1,200. Then I saw it in real estate. So I want you to remember that, what is the future of dentistry? Well, in 1950, for the Fortune 500, 65 years later, 88% of those companies were out of business. So for any monkey to be standing here looking at the S&P 500 saying, who would have thought 10 years ago when you got your first iPhone, Motorola and Nokia owned the market? Yeah, and now, do you know anybody with a Nokia? It's a joke. And now the iPhone is the 800-pound gorilla, but Steve Jobs died, and I've lived here half a century. I guarantee you, somebody's going to destroy this business model too. So 88% of the Fortune 500 in 1950, they're not here. So for anybody in 2015 to tell you the business model of dentistry 10 to 20 or 30 years is beyond comical. In fact, by 2050, a third of Americans will be working in an industry that hasn't even been invented yet. But I do want to finish one question. I want to go back to you because sometimes women tell me, and I've heard this before, that I'm a young woman dentist. I went to a small town, and it's a good old boy club. And I'm sitting here knowing my homies. I bet they probably appeared that way to the new young girl in the small town in Texas or Georgia or Alabama or Kansas or whatever. But in their heart, they don't think that way. So if you do you ever think it's a good old boy club? And the reason I want to say this is because I hear lots of individuals, from women and gays, that a gay dentist will be and is afraid of getting involved in a study club in Salina, Kansas, because he thinks if they all find out he's gay, he's going to be railroaded out of town.
Come to California, you'll be my best friend.
Yeah,
I promise you.
and I think that what they don't realize is they're probably giving off that vibe without just knowing it. So I just want to call attention. So have you ever heard any girls thinking that you're in a man's profession, or is that just completely dead?
I think that's more older, at least a little bit more older than us, maybe. But
Yeah, I feel like there's still the stereotypes. Like I always get when you say you're in dental school, like, oh, are you going to school to be a hygienist or an assistant? Or when I bring a patient back, like, where's the dentist going to sit? Like, oh, I'm going to sit right here. So I don't know. Yeah.
You had that before?
Yes, all the time. And I think it's like that for every female in my class.
It's all the time. Say that again. Say all the time what?
All the time you get that stereotype from males, females, outside of school.
and
But,
that's
yeah,
where I
with
think
our patients.
with what Ziad was saying, that's a little disrespectful.
Yeah.
So where we kind of get that. But also
But-
we are based in Mesa, which is also a more senior area than Snowbird. So maybe it could just be the cross generation.
Or they're driving over from Mesa to Apache Junction buying meth, and they're just blowing their mind. But I do want to say one thing for my generation that the young girls do wrong, and that is if you're a grandpa and you walk into a dental office and you can't tell the difference between the way the female dentist and the female assistant and the female receptionist is dressed, it's kind of your fault. I mean, if you go into McDonald's, they got a uniform and a name tag, and the manager does have a hat. You know what I mean? So I do think if everybody in the office is dressed the same, then how does someone know this is a receptionist, this is a hygienist, this is an assistant? And so I'm old school in that I like to wear scrubs and tennis shoes because I like to feel comfortable. Because at my age, if you dress for success, your feet hurt. I got to dress for being an old fat man, so I need to have to wear my tennis shoes, and that matches scrubs, not really a suit and tie. But I want to go back to something more important, and that is, I believe the fundamental problem with corporate is they're offering all the jobs, and all my homies aren't. And my homie, there's 168 hours in a week, and they're open 32 hours a week. Well, 32 divided by 160 is only 19% of the week. So these idiots are open Monday through Thursday, 8 to 5. And it's idiots because when mom was up all night with Megan with a toothache on a pulpotomy, and you're not answering your phone Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, when you'd go work there and do the job, but it'd be evenings and weekends, and I know you're a lazy millennial, so you won't do that. And I'm just kidding. So tell me, would you work if a dental office was closed Friday, Saturday, Sunday? Would you work Friday and Saturday? Would you work evenings? What do I know their phones ring off the wall, but they don't know it because they have an analog wired phone system with an answering machine, and monkeys don't leave messages on answering machine. Monkeys don't talk to trees and tables. They talk to humans. And when there's an answering service, then they leave a message, you can digitally track calls, but what would it take to get you to work for them? Because they say 60% of the dental school graduates will go work for corporate. 6 out of 10 is the data I've seen. So these dentists who their dental offices paid for and closed 81% of the week, what would they have to do to get you to work for them? What are you looking for?
My friends who graduated like in the last 2, 3, even 5 years ago, most of them are still working Fridays. They pick up that first week, or not Friday, sorry, Saturdays. They're still working those. So it's not really. Everyone got into dentistry primarily at least some small percentage of the autonomy and the small business model. There's no doubt. Nobody went in dentistry.
Be here 100 years from now.
I'm going to hold you to it.
And you're not going to be working at McDonald's.
I mean, that we are.
McDonald's.
Well, we're not. We didn't come up with the gloom and doom. We were told the gloom and doom by our whoever. So at the same time, and by the way, I want to take back. I went too hard on that generational thing. I feel bad now. There's a lot. No, there's a lot. There's a lot that we are grateful for. We are thankful for the institutions that were built. What we are upset at, and this is the primary mistake that's always made. It's a miscommunication. It's like any relationship, right? We are expressing frustration at the failure of our institutes. We are not expressing frustration at the institute. We're not here to light cars on fire and flip them. We're upset that we were promised something and we are willing to work for it. And when we work for it, we don't see the results, right? We came into dental school. We're ready to treat people, make people's lives better. We are ready to do everything that we were promised to do.
So let me see if anything's changed. So when I was in dental school, back with my classmate was Fred Flintstone and Barney
there we
Rubble. We always complained because everybody would always say that managing dentists is like herding cats. And every time a dental school would go to make a decision, they'd get 10 dentists in the room who couldn't even agree that today is Friday. You know what I mean? And that you look at the largest institutions like an Army or a Walmart, 90% of the people don't have any college, and they just get their marching orders and go. But whenever you go into a law firm, a hospital, a dental school, a med school, and everybody has 8 years of college, that it's just the management structure is
beyond
batshit-
horrendous.
batshit
It's like
crazy.
preschoolers are
So
running
I
the
was
place.
wondering, did that change from 28 years ago? Are dental schools now run very efficiently and orderly, and there's a nice
which
chain of
dental
command?
schools? Which dental schools, right? Because we're all no, but I mean in the sense that Jack Dillenberg definitely created a different model from most dental schools. So we're all from Arizona School of Dentistry. We're very proud of our our dean and our institute. However, at the same time, it's a very high cost of education. We don't know who to blame necessarily. I don't think we can blame any one person. But at the same time, I think that, of course, go back to your original question, we are willing to work if we need to. We will do it. We will. But nobody came into dental school saying, I can't wait to graduate and work for corporate dentistry. It's going to be great. I don't even know what the word PTO means. That's a primary. Every single dental student, I think you can say unequivocally, has a small percentage of that. But I'll let you go ahead.
No, going back to that, like, I think corporate comes like arms out saying, come to us. We will get you on your feet, and then we'll mentor you to private practice. And then that's how you get sucked into this, like black hole. And some people might get out. Good for them. Some people don't, whatever. But I think, yeah, so they promise you a lot of things, and you're like, this sounds great. Because I think because of this generational gap, there's not a lot of the people who are ready to retire saying, come to me. I will open my door. I will mentor you. I'll get you on your feet. Because they like, how do I talk to this millennial who's always on their phone? Because now we talk through text. We talk through pictures, which is our fault too, because I'm, to be honest, I'm not the best at having a conversation with someone who's 80 years old. My grandpa, I can talk to him forever, but someone on the street, we have lost the art of communication. So because they have it so well, and then they see people are turned off by technology or intimidated by it, there's this dual intimidation factor. So if there were more people saying, come to me, I will help you, I like you, I'll, work on your weaknesses or help mentor you through to private practice, I think more people would be more willing to go seek that. But I think there's a closed offness because there's like this dual intimidation.
But I think it goes both ways. I think like we've alluded to it so many times about with every relationship to include business and personal is about communication. And when you have preconceived notions that, the millennials are this way, or, the greatest generation is this way, you've already closed the door to an open conversation. I think if, like Vanessa had said, if there was a forum, an avenue, which Dentaltown does provide, but I'm not sure if in classified ads that you guys will be releasing, and the AZDA in terms of, and also I'm on different Facebook groups. So like San Diego County Dental Society says, hey, we have an associateship that's opening up. So that there are small resources at which you can get that access of information and know where there are job opportunities. But I think in terms of it's matching somebody with the same clinical philosophy as you. So say, for instance, an older gentleman, woman, it's like, I want an associate. But in that trial period of them coming to you and seeing if it's the right fit, because any associate that's coming to you is looking to learn and eventually, possibly, potentially own and take over the practice. I don't think anybody wants to uproot their lives so many times to go move, I'm going to work here for 2 years, but in that 2 years after dental school, I might have had 2 kids, so I can't really uproot and go move to, Washington, D.C., somewhere very far away, because I have more of an investment personally, for example. So what I'm trying to just say is streamline communication to just don't have preconceived notions about how people are. I might be very different than somebody else in my generation, and likewise for the greatest dental generation, I don't know that you say it, but also learning, so matching somebody that has the same clinical philosophy, so both of us, it's kind of like speed dating. Both of us, if I were to come and interview to work at your practice, it would be interviewing for maybe a month or 3 months to where we can get to know each other to see if that would be a good relationship. But I think also understanding what motivates people and what drives them and how to make that work. If I can relate to my dad, and he is part of your generation, it's just he was growing up, and he's kind of softened. Maybe it's just men soften with age too, but it was a very hard generation. And because their parents came from probably factory worker, working through the world wars kind of thing. So they're a very harder generation. We're a more softer generation. We're more about diplomacy and talking things out before you kind of just raise a gun, kind of thing. At least that's how I feel for myself. So in terms of, but I'm very interested in knowing, it's funny that you say people should wear different outfits, because I'm like, now mental note. So in my office, if I ever open one, people should wear different outfits. I had no idea, that's why people preconceive as, oh, maybe you're the dental hygienist or the assistant, because we're not differentiating ourselves. But I think understanding and this is for the older people and younger people, what motivates your staff? How do they think? Because some people just wants to go out and party, but they've got to come to work and they have to own a paycheck. But they might not their work productivity might suck compared to the person who takes value and pride in their job. But how do you engage and entertain to keep that person to get the same production as somebody who goes there every day, needs the job, wants the job? But I think that that's not something that I should just be curious about, but that should be something that older generations should be curious about too. How can I motivate? You know what I mean? Everybody, not just I'm the right way, this is the only way kind of thing. But I think if both generations were that way, I think we'd have more progress. But
I was just gonna go back into corporate dentistry, and I'm kind of the opposite of Michael. Like, I'm not opposed to going into corporate, just because they do make it very appealing. We don't really get much business in dental school, so it's like kind of taking an easy way out. You get out of dental school and somebody's doing all the hard work for you. All you have to do is go in, practice dentistry, what we learned to do in school, and then you're also being mentored there. And then they do kind of tell you eventually, we'll teach you, we'll mentor you, and you can eventually own your own practice. So I think I would go into corporate in hopes of down the road one day having my own practice.
And what percent of your classmates do you think someday really want to own their own practice versus what percent just always want to work?
The idea of want, but actually are capable, I think is differently measured. I think people, I think I'm this way, but how I project is very different. But I think there's a lot of people that say, I think I would say 100% says I'm going to own my own practice. But if I have to assess how I work with them from like a student body or student organization level and their output, I'm like, mm-mm.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think a lot of it has to come from, like, we're talking about corporate and going into it. Coming from like a background of working in the business of dentistry and from a business management perspective, and going back to what Michael's saying, a lot of people don't know. And so when I hear people talking about, oh, this is what I'm afraid of, and I'm like, well, it just makes sense. This is what you do, because I have that background. A lot of people don't. So I've seen like dentists who are great clinicians, and we talked about this earlier, great clinicians, great with people, but they can't run a business to save their life. So that's where that's where they fill the gap. Whether it like fills the need long term and meets your long term goals is different. But
I also want to know what percent of your class do you think has a dentist in the family tree? I mean, it seems like dentistry is always a nuclear family. It seems like so many dentists have a dad, an uncle, a cousin Eddie. What percent would you say have a pre-existing dentist in the family tree?
My class, it's like, it's high.
I'd say
like
like
30, 40%.
Oh,
Yeah.
a lot. But I think that also comes down, I think that also influences people's ability to run a practice, because they're like, oh, I want to do this. This is what's natural. This is what I see, monkey do type of thing. But they never then they come from a well-off family. They never have to work in like an assembly line or like learn how to interact and manage a group and work as a team, because they have this nice cushion to go with it. So I think, like we talked about earlier, the most successful people are the ones who like have to work the hardest, and the ones who kind of fall along the way and pull themselves back up. That's my opinion.
So I actually can't answer that question because I didn't come from a family of any dentists. So they would probably, I don't want to give misinformation or because it's my own lack of awareness, because I didn't come from a background like that. But I would say that I am surprised by actually how many students do not even have their own either checking account or credit card. Bewilders me, because that's what I discovered. I died laughing when my friend told me he or she, I won't disclaim who, does not have their own bank account. And I was so confused. And I was like bank account, like, okay, maybe you don't like savings or checking. And they're like, no, I just have one from my parents, or I have my parents' credit cards and I charge stuff. And I was like, okay. And I was like, no, you're one. Okay. But in SimLab, I went to another person and they're like, no, I don't have it either. And I was like, no. So I went to a third person and I was like, this is like a conspiracy. And they're like, no, I don't. And I was like, okay. Everybody's different. I can't give, I was surprised with that.
Yeah. And something Vanessa just brought up, I think that bridges any generational gap is that the values are still the same. If you want to be highly ranked in your dental class, you're going to have to work hard. If you want to be successful in business, you're going to have to work hard. So I think where a misconception is that the older generation sees the younger generation, they're given trophies and rewards for not working hard, but I think those values transcend any generational gap.
I think the values transcend, and I think a lot of it too that we're not hardworking because we've been forced to work hard. Is the thing is that why? I mean, hell, if it was my kid, I'd be like, okay, cut loose. I wouldn't cushion them on a bank account all the way through dental school. So it has to do with the culture, and because coming from whatever background you came from, you didn't have that security, so it scared the crap out of you. So now you want to give that security to your kids, but now it's hindering us at the same time. And I come from a family that had a dentist in it, but that taught me to be on my own feet and like, you want to do it, you got to make it happen. And if I was scared or I wanted to argue a test, they wouldn't go, oh, Vanessa got a C and go argue the teacher. No, if you want to argue it, you go do it yourself. I'm not going to help you. So I think it has to do with, there's a lot of coddling going on. Feel like it's nice and comforting and feel
were
cushy.
all 5 of you born in the United States? You're all born in the United States? This is Dentistry Uncensored. You want me to tell you the most racist Dentistry Uncensored thing that the older consultants all talk about, but no one would ever say in public or writing, is that when you graduate from dental school, it seems like the foreign-born people have the hardest work. I mean, if they're foreign-born, they'll come out and they'll plumb a dental office in San Fran for 4 operatories. They'll live in the 4th operatory. They won't even have an apartment, a condo, a house, or a car. Their hours will be 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And you come back 5 years later, they've paid off their $400,000 in loans from UFP, and she's sitting on $200,000 in cash, and she still doesn't have a car or a house. But it seems like if they were born in the daddy was a dentist, didn't have a checking account, just had a credit card. They come out of school and they work Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. Their house, they go buy a house twice as big as their dental office. They walk out of school and buy a $50,000 car. And the work ethic, I mean, I still think the secret engine of America's economy is 1 million hungry, starving immigrants a year who came 10,000 miles just to work their ass off. And then the third generation is eating Cheetos, playing video games.
Okay, I got it. So,
was it the Cheetos that got you?
When you said video games, I will not stand for that. No, I think there's a couple of things going on with that, right? Because even the discussion and the language that we use, my generation, the younger generation, it has changed. When we look at race, when we talk about white privilege, these are terms that we didn't even define, talk about, 15, even like 10 years ago, I would say. So much has changed in the dialogue nationally about race and immigration and whatnot that we really have to sit down and reassess what exactly are we talking about, because there's more similarities among immigrants, second, third generation than there are differences based on ethnic, differences in the ethnicities versus the generational difference, right? So I have friends, for example, that are second or third generation, but they are having a different outlook on the values that maybe are communicated differently. For example, sure, they want to pay off their loans. Sure, they come from a family that is expressing saving as a value more so than spending and whatnot. However, I also go to my friends' weddings that are like $1.3 million weddings. So what's going on here? So it's the idea.
You went to a wedding that costs more than the divorce?
Yeah. I'm not going to tell you the cost of the divorce. But the point is, there's just a different set of values. There are parents that are immigrant parents. Obviously, I'm talking about South Asian generally, but even across, there was some study.
Is that your ethnicity?
Yeah. So I'm saying, for example, South Asian. So I'm Pakistani Indian, right? So doctors, engineers, very common, lawyers. And there's actually lamenting going on in the community that there isn't enough liberal arts education. And that has influenced not only the values of that second, third generation, but now the parents are saying, look, we worked hard. We did what you were talking about, sleeping in the 4th operatory, right? Riding like a scooter, all that stuff. But now we don't want our kids to do that. We want them to enjoy their life. We want them to build something that we didn't get a chance to enjoy. We didn't sacrifice our life for them to go do the same thing. So you are seeing more pressure from parents in some regard to say, look, we don't want you working. Don't break your back. That's why you went into dentistry. You know, we don't want you to do that. So I think that's a great thing to tap into for the older generation to say, look, we want to understand your hopes, your fears, your values, and how can we, because at the end of the day, dentistry is an apprenticeship, right? That's how we learn. It's an art. We have tremendous respect for the elder generation that has, you know, that took this field of dentistry and have so much value for, you know, wax from honeybees that they grew in their backyard or whatnot. This is incredible. We want to learn it. We don't have the chance because we have a curriculum that was designed by those same people to get us through with a 2-week vacation and boards and exams, and we have to get married. And the amount of pressures on our generation and the time span is so shortened, we don't have the luxury. So there's a little bit of resentment sometimes that, look, you had a 2-month vacation for your dental school. I got to get my life together. I don't have a chance to make mistakes. I can't do that. I can't and the problem there is that sorry, I'll finish up. The problem there is that what made the greatest generation? They took risks. They took risks that nobody else could take. We can't afford to take it, right? Kind of like what she was mentioning with the coddling. They didn't allow us to develop, make those mistakes, get up, scrape our knee, put on the Band-Aid, walk forward. So nobody can be blamed for that, but we need to understand it as a reality. And maybe we can bridge the gap between the generations by saying, look, I do value a high quality of life, but I also value mentorship, like was mentioned. You know, I'm a female dentist, for example. I'm coming in. I need to learn what you guys valued as dentistry, but what I can bring to your practice as a female dentist. I can speak to a female patient as I feel, right? But I can as a male dentist, I can only read something in a textbook. So as a male dentist that's 65 years old, I bring in a young female associate. She's going to change my entire business model. But I need to learn how to work with her. I need to learn what respect means to her in a different sense. And again, that language with the generational, the differences there, there's so much more similarities between me and him, right? And more differences between me and him. I'm saying the differences are larger with his parents and my parents. I can relate to him and his parents. He comes home, he says something, my dad said this. I said, my dad said the same thing, you know? But between us, we have so much more similarities because we're both on Snapchat, we're both on Twitter, we both understand race probably more similarly than the differences between the generation. So I think understanding that vertical gap, the horizontal similarities, whether it's gender, like you mentioned, women in dentistry or whatnot, ethnicity, values, all that stuff, if we can combine that together and say, look, I can bring something to your office, tell me, sell me on it. So don't make me, I'm begging you to not make me go into corporate dentistry. Mm-hmm. And you have the power to pull me in. You do. So that's what I think we can do, at least work on, at least for your homies. So
I just never knew that the best hair in the world came from Pakistan and India. I've never felt so bald in my life until I started talking to you guys. This guy, if you're on iTunes, you got to log on to YouTube just to see his hair. I'm feeling extra bald today. So go back to so I want to continue on. It's my belief that if the dentists all went from an analog phone system to a digital and saw how much missed business, in healthcare we're talking about availability and accessibility. If you go up to any dentist and say, what bonding agent do you use? He'll say Clearfill SE. I'll say, what's a megapascal? 27 megapascals. I'll say, okay, how many incoming calls did you have last week in your dental office? I have no freaking idea. Okay, it's 2016. Tell me your 2015 return on equity, return on asset. They don't know. They don't know anything they need to know, and everything they do know, like wear rates of fillings, megapascal. Everything they know they don't need to know. Like they'll tell me the Krebs cycle. They'll tell me the periodic table. They'll show me geometry. They'll show me. And I believe if they had a digital phone system and saw the number of incoming calls, that they're only open 19% of the week, and not just the missed dollars, but the missed toothaches, the missed pain, the people eating Vicodin that can't poop for 3 days. And so I want to go back to what would it take what would I have to put on a classified? What are you willing to do? Would you go to Parsons, Kansas? Did you want salary? Be more specific about build me the classified ad. We'll start with you. Build me the classified ad where I could get Austin Shackelford. Would you sign a 3-year contract? If you go into the Navy, you sign 4 years. A lot of these dentists say, all the homies tell me, I know what you're going to do, Austin. You're going to come in here and you're going to take a job until you find the first damn thing better, then you're gone, or you're just going to have a job, and while you're looking for where you're going to sign your lease, and then 6 months later you're gone. So tell me, would you sign a contract? Do you need a base? Do you need a commission? Do you need student loan forgiveness? And if so, over what kind of an AM, 5-year, 10-year? Just tell me how I can get you to work for me.
Okay. So, all of our our situations are going to be pretty different. I'd like to practice eventually in Phoenix, Arizona. So I am willing to sacrifice salary for location. That's just like how I feel. I am definitely interested in mentorship. I see
Mentorship in what?
as far as getting out of school and then learning how to run a business, learning what procedures are going to be best for my future practice, things like that. And yeah, having a financial advice. I think one of my biggest fears for going into a dental practice, and I alluded to it earlier, but it's just I've seen some dentists around town in the older generation that are very inflexible as far as maybe trying to grow their business, or maybe they're trying to grow their business, but it's just in a weird way, paying a consultant to then get them to do search engine optimization when they don't really know what it is or care. They just want more people in the chairs. So that's like one of my biggest fears is kind of being stuck in a situation. But at the same time, I've never had to provide for my family. I've never had to put food on the table. So if something's working, then you go with it. So for me, it's learning from a mentor who is open-minded and willing to grow.
Do you have a family yet? Do you have any kids? I don't. Because I always thought, these dental schools are getting so expensive, but during endo, if the first root canal you ever did was on your vas deferens and you obturated that thing well, you would save so much money that your dental school tuition wouldn't even matter. But another inappropriate joke. Again, so how can I get you to work for me?
For me personally, I'll move anywhere. I'll move anywhere as long as it provides me with the opportunity to grow. I eventually want to, have my own practice and maybe, start another practice or make a larger conglomerate, like not corporate, but like have associates and build up. And I want to provide that same mentorship that they provided me. So I want a place where I can grow and then kind of take a step back and and pass the good deed down, pay it forward. So that's what I would want. And I don't want commission based. I would want a salary because then you can manipulate me more. And so I can
manipulate more of the commission or a salary?
I think commission, because then you can take the high priced ticket value items. I would want a salary, and I'd want because if you go through here's today's procedures. Okay, Vanessa, you're gonna have these 5 fillings, and I'm gonna do the crown and the root canal.
Okay, so fairness.
Yeah, I want fairness.
You think commission would get rid of fairness?
Yeah, I would want a salary, and I'd want retirement planning and benefits, because that's in today's age. You need to have benefits. You need to be able, medical. That's a huge thing in a healthcare profession. You don't provide benefits because you're a healthcare provider. No, I don't. The dental benefits, whatever, but like medical, that's a huge thing. What if my spouse doesn't have medical benefits? So.
Then you need to marry up.
I know. There we go. But you know what? Or what if I'm not even going to be married? Then I just need to go gold digging. But so I want benefits. I want salary. I want opportunity to grow so I can pay it forward. And I want you to understand that I'm a female and I want to have kids. So I want you to be. I know. So I want to have kids, and I want you to support that growth.
What could I do to talk you out of having children? As my son Ryan's filming the podcast. No, I'm just kidding. And when you have kids, are you gonna be the woman who takes off 6 weeks from maternity and comes back full time, or does that mean having kids? Then after you have kids, you're only gonna work 2 days a week till the kids in first grade. Talk about that.
For me, no, I will come back and I will work harder than ever because I can't stay still for long, even though kids would. Have me running in circles. The person I'm with now, I think, is more domesticated than I am, so he'd probably be better suited for it, which is a sad truth. But you know what each other's strengths are, and you play to them. So I would be probably he'd be the stay-at-home dad, and I'd be the moneymaker.
You know, I got to tell you something. When I got out of school in '87, and women were starting to enter dentistry in groves, the planners calculated that the woman's career was going to be about half the output as the male career. So now I've been out a quarter of a century, and I talked to all the girls in our class, and every one of them's productivity was the same as the man. So they just got it wrong. I mean, look what they were saying in 1980 and 85. You were all going to get out of school, get pregnant and retire, or come back and work 2 days a week. And all the 55-year-old women in my class are still cranking it 32 to 40 hours a week. So there's all.
I think that I like that statistic because I think, again, going back to the older generation, they have the assumption that a woman wants to come in and associate because then she can have kids and greater flexibility and never want to work their way up to become their, the head honcho. I think that's a total misconception, and some people might want it, some people don't. I think that conversation needs to be laid on the table. If you're looking to hire a woman and you want someone who sure has kids but doesn't ever leave your office or step on your toes, then conversation needs to be had.
But it sounds like you do want to work in corporate. It sounds like. Or
I would
yeah.
work in corporate.
And to me, I don't like the term corporate because 80% of the dentists say they don't like corporate. They're incorporated.
Yeah.
I mean, their taxes are incorporated. So when I think of them, when people are bad mouthing corporate, I think of a better term is like big box multi-state dentistry. Mm-hmm. But I think in your world, corporate is really just any dental office that would provide a long-term employment job. And I agree, all my employees have 401k and health care. And I always thought that was criminal that the dentist retires at 65, a millionaire, and his assistant goes to a trailer park on Medicare. I don't understand that. But you want to work for somebody.
I don't necessarily want to, but I would. Just like when I get out of school, I'm going to be more near like $500,000 in debt. So I would want some kind of loan repayment, a
For
salary.
What would the AM be? You said 400,000 is a 5,800 a month for
10 years, yeah. Like some kind of 10-year loan repayment program.
And why are you $500,000 instead of 400,000?
Just undergrad, and I was in grad school after that. And
Okay, tell me this, because a lot of people my age are slamming you guys, saying, "Well, yeah, they're $400,000 in debt." Okay, so when I was in school, I didn't have a car till senior year, so I walked. I had 3 jobs. A lot of people say, "Yeah, you're the laziest generation's $400,000 in student loans because they're driving a $40,000 Honda car, and spring break they're doing Carnival cruises in the Caribbean, and they're living the highfalutin life and eating out at Ruth's Chris."
yeah.
But I would say, is that stereotype true, or are you guys eating ramen noodles and graduating $400,000 in student loans? Because I'm
trying. I think I live as a student as much as I can. And I'm still going to be close to $500,000 in debt.
But did you take cruises and buy new cars?
I've never been on a cruise.
Did you buy a new car on a student loan?
No.
Okay. Do you like the taste of ramen noodles?
I'll eat ramen noodles. I have them in my cupboard right now, actually. So
Okay.
I think debt is something that our generation has realized it's the inevitable. So you're in debt, and the way you deal with it will be different. Some people will just be like, okay, I'll be in more debt and buy a car, and some are a little smarter with the money they don't have. So I think that we've realized we all are going to be in the hole, and it depends on how people deal with it.
I'm not sure if we're smarter with the way that money is. I don't think in terms of our generation, at least for myself, I don't know much about investing. They took away a lot of classes, I think, in high school that actually taught you life skills, like how to do your taxes, which you'd be surprised at how many people our young age don't know how to do taxes. And we don't really make any money, so it should be pretty easy to fill out. So I'm even guilty of that myself. So, and also the definition of poor is different. So when my mom grew up, and she's an immigrant, so we did like...
Where's your mom immigrant from?
Okinawa, Japan.
Wow.
Yeah, but she lived in the
So
Philippines
she married
for a little
an American GI then?
bit.
Yeah. See?
Yeah. So
every friend I know that's half Japanese.
That's what happened.
was
No, I
married-
know.
that married
Yeah,
a
it's very
GI.
common. Yeah. But her definition of poor versus our definition of poor. If you're going to be poor, my dad's like, you need to be in the United States, because her poor and her growing up was not eating for a week and sharing her roommate's food, having holes in her shoe and walking to school. Like, that's the poor. I don't think any of us have ever had to walk to school without eating for a week or sharing your friend's food, or, you know what I mean, holes in your shoes and stuff like that. So I think the definition of poor is different. And so, for instance, but also the mentality of we have so much in debt. So my fiance, he's in dental school up north too, so we have his debt too. So we're at $1 million. He just accepted residency, so now we're going to be at 1.3 million in debt at this point, and it takes already 10 years, a payment plan of 5,800 just for myself. At this point, we're going to be in debt for life, and that's kind of how America has turned to. It's invisible money, where you just have that credit card. It's not just we're guilty of it. It's majority of the population who can't pay. How many people do you know and graduated high school or maybe even went through college, but they just charged their card and they're like, oh shoot, I have so much money and I have to pay this back because now I'm in collections. Like, you know what I mean? I at least have friends that didn't have the concept of money or earning how much money, or what they were spending and what they were earning is very different until it was so blown out. So in terms of us, we have so much debt that it's like a cruise at $500, at which I'm going to be paying. It's charge, so I don't know. No, it's not just us. I just think it's the reality of that. We have so much debt. We know we're going to be paying it off for so long.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't know how to make their money work for them, or the difference between good debt and bad debt. I'm the type of person, going back to a job listing, I don't need a debt repayment program because I know, like I said, debt is inevitable, and eventually I'll work my way out of the hole, and that student loan debt is necessarily, being a dental student loan debt is more of a good debt, and bankers will look positively on that versus being in millions of dollars of credit card debt. So making the student loan debt work for me isn't as big as an issue as if I was, maxing out all my credit cards.
I'm going to ask go change topics completely, and that is when you're talking about mentorship, when you're getting a job at a dentist, you've all mentioned business. Does anything clinically interest you? Is any of your goals someday I want to do any type of procedures? Switch to clinical for me.
One thing our school is struggling with, and I think it's across the board, just with the way that dental technology has kind of evolved to, endo is hard to come by. So we only do a limited amount by the time we graduate. So, and I think that every graduate will agree that we wish that we had more molar endo to do that opportunity versus pull the tooth and put an implant at the same cost. Why not? So in terms of offering incentives or maybe paid CE, that would be pretty awesome. We have Spear that's local. I think so. Anything with implant, you knocked CAD-CAM, but CAD-CAM is, if the office is using it, we need to know how to use it. But a lot of times when we're trying to get a job, they're like, oh, they need to be well-versed in Dentrix, they need to have Excel, they need to speak 5 languages, they need to know CAD-CAM, they need to have implants certified. And so in terms of not working hard, it's like, dude, my fiance knows 3 languages, and it's like, in addition, that he can offer that to, right, you need to have all of this too. So in terms of you work hard, he knows 3 languages, man. How long would it take an older generation to learn 3 languages? You know what I mean? So he speaks Arabic, he speaks Spanish, and he speaks English, of course. And I can sign language. But to pick up now, the newer generations, it's required now that you have to learn a new language or at least take a couple years in college. Now, before it was just optional. But now it's learning a whole new language because now the values have shifted, not from, at least in the older previous times in the United States, it was, assimilating. That's what you want to do. At least when my parents came here, or my mom, at least in the 70s, it was, I don't know another language like Japanese or Tagalog, which is a dialect of the Philippines, because it wasn't valued. We just got back from, she came a little after World War II, and so we're still in that time, even 30 years after, like in the 70s she came, you still had the Japanese internment camps. So it was not valued to speak another language, so she didn't teach it. She didn't want us to learn it. She didn't want us to be singled out. Now it's valued, and so everybody speaks multiple languages. And it was required in college, so I learned sign language. So it's just times change.
Well, you have to sign up for my Hard Speaks podcast because Ryan and I are going to Tokyo next month, aren't we, to do some podcasts. So we'll bring you Tokyo Live. But again, mentorship, is there anything you're looking for outside of business and money? Is there any clinical procedures that if one of my homies was trying to hire you and said, I'll teach you how to do this, that would interest you? What clinical thing?
So I just did a rotation. I'm a 4th-year student, right? So we're just now getting a preview into how little we really know. Okay, so it's like, wow. It's not only was I worried about mastering what I've been taught in dental school, about 2% of that is used outside. So now I've got to learn what I need to learn, right? You don't know what you don't know. They keep telling us these buzzwords like CEREC and implants. And of course we're like, yeah, I want to learn implants. But do I want to learn implants? I don't know what I want to learn. That's why I need to get into a practice where somebody's willing to explain their philosophy, the importance, how they value, for example, the whole conversation you had about titanium. I mean, that's something that blew my mind. I was like, wow, I didn't know. Or even the other conversation that you talked about, the pros of amalgam versus our obsession with, megapascals and whatnot. I mean, these are things we don't know. We're still stuck on, I don't know how to border mold. Damn it,
Also, just to piggyback off, he's absolutely right. In dental school, and I'm sure everyone of the older generation agrees, when you come out of dental school, they teach you, or they try to teach you one way. And it's a good way, it's an accurate way, but it's still you graduate learning one way, and this is the proper steps. So if there's an efficient way, if there's another way, if there's an alternative way, at least from the dental education side, don't confuse students because they're learning it for the first time. So they need something that they can learn, that's a protocol that they can go by. So it's kind of like if you complete all these steps, it should be good. You should be good to go. But if there's alternative materials, we don't get alternative materials. You can maybe get one other option, composite amalgam, for instance, you know what I mean? But in terms of, can you fabricate, rather than taking the 6 steps for a denture, is there a faster way to fabricate a denture? I don't know. Is there, that's something that I would have to learn in the field. So alternative ways, other options, that would be beneficial, at least for me.
Yeah, I'm a huge like techie when it comes to like the latest and greatest and most efficient. So if you could provide me with opportunities to even just go to CE courses or conferences to learn kind of what's out there, not necessarily that I'm going to, take everything and be like, I'm going to do it this way, but just so I know what my options are, that would be great, because I want to be able to make a decision for myself on what I'm going to choose to do, instead of right now the schools are telling us this is the way you do it. I want to be able to say like, this is what I believe. This is how I think I should do it. And, if patients agree with me or not, then cool.
Going back to your original question, I haven't had a handpiece in a real patient's mouth yet, but from working on plastic teeth and mannequins, I have an interest in fixed pros. So crown and bridge. I come from a lab background. So any mentorship opportunity where that clinician is really strong in that area, that's something that I'd really like to learn.
I mean, I'm interested in perio. I'd like to specialize. So I'd really like to learn implants.
Okay, we're out of time. That's our brand is an hour. And I want to end on is this is one of the coolest experiences I've ever had is I've taken groups to dental students from your dental school to Antioch to Mexico, Tanzania. I lectured in half a dozen dental schools every 20 years. I'm always so amazed by the quality of the dentist behind me. I always feel like, some people leave their profession and say, my profession is going to hell. I always say, God dang, the dental students are just faster, better, smarter, more pure, more awesome. I mean, God dang. My generation can't be the greatest generation because the dental students are always rocking hot, smarter, more passionate. I look at all my classmates. I don't want to say their names because they might be listening to it. But they're all, but you got, the dental students, you're just world class. And it was an honor to come speak to you today. And I just feel like if everybody who graduated in 87 died tomorrow, dentistry would be even in better hands. I really do. I just think it's amazing, you guys.
Yeah, we stood on the shoulders of you guys.
And thank you for coming and talking with us today. Learned a lot.
Oh, it was an honor. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
You.
And
thanks, Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan.
Behind the camera, no credit ever. Just the butt of your jokes.